We had a really good, solid recruiting class this year. I think next year is going to be even better and kind of continue to grow that way. I just want to see this program have a lot of success in this league and in this province.
Welcome to episode 173 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. This week, we put the wraps on our Canadian College Baseball Conference preview episodes, chatting with each of the Alberta team's coaches, with University of Calgary Dinos bench boss Cam Williams on deck. Originally from Coquitlam, BC, Williams moved to Calgary to study kinesiology and play baseball. We first met the infielder back in 2018 when he set the Dinos' all-time record for career hits. He stayed in Calgary, joined the Bucks coaching staff before taking the top job with the Dinos. It's been a weird start to his coaching career, to say the very least, doing it all during a pandemic. But he's had some early success as the team finally got to play some games over the past couple of weekends, guiding them to a .500 record. What's the transition been like? What are his coaching philosophies? And what kinds of advice is he passing on to his players? We chatted about it all recently. Cam, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Joe. It's been a pleasure. You've always done a great job with this. So great to be on.
Really appreciate it. The kind words right off the bat. You're setting the bar really high for what the conversation is going to be like. Let's start off. Take us back to last weekend, opening weekend. How excited were you personally to finally get back onto the field?
Oh man, very excited. It's been second year on the job and haven't gotten to play a conference game, right? So energy was really, really high. Guys were really just ready to go, fired up on both sides. Both dugouts were into it. Played 3 of the 4 were tight ball games. Into the tie games into the 8th and 9th, and it was just a ton of fun to be back out there. And it's almost made it worth the 2-year wait to get back out there.
No small feat either, and that you managed to pull off a split with PBA, Todd Hubka, who was a guest a couple of weeks ago here. How did that feel to not just be able to play, but also to stringing together a couple of wins as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. We've taken a lot of losses down there at Lloyd Nolan Yard, so felt good. And they've always had a really strong program down there, and I think it just attests to how hard our guys have worked and how ready to go they were, because starting the season on the road down there especially, and then, coming away with a split, and just overall playing some decent baseball and, areas to grow for sure. But, it's like I said, it was a huge start to the season for us, being on the road.
Take us into your dugout, and what are you expecting out of this crew of athletes?
They're really close. Like, honestly, I got kind of a split. Like, we got a good core of older guys that have really stuck it through. They've survived COVID and continue to grind and work hard for themselves, right? And they're really close, and they got a really kind of electrifying young group where kind of getting their feet wet and trying to gain experience and learn from those older guys too. So like I said, we got a lot of depth, and we got guys that are ready to step up. And like I said, just I expect them to compete every game, and I think we're going to play a lot of tight ball games, which is going to be stressful for me, but I think moving forward, it's going to be really good for us. Learning how to win in those tight games is really hard. It's one of the hardest things to learn, and it's hard to teach, right? Like, all your practice reps don't really attest to a 3-2 ball game in the 9th, right? Mm-hmm. It's really hard to simulate that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this question always leads to, it's like picking favorite children almost, but any guys that you're really thinking need to be keyed on, guys that you feel are going to be head turners for your squad?
Well, one of them is Chris Cook. I mean, he's one of our stars. He's also one of our middle of the order guys, right? So, and he's just one of our leaders on and off the field in general, right? So he's a guy that if he's going, we're gonna have a lot of success. Right? Not to put too much pressure on him, but and then we still have Jordan Smith back, who's a huge. Just kind of getting back on the mound. He's kind of had some elbow issues, but he's actually one of our better bats now too. So just overall, like I said, we probably have 3 or 4, 60-year guys almost now, right? And 2 guys actually in grad school, which is really cool. Like I said, they're doing a really, really good job with those younger guys and kind of getting them ready because, pass the torch, if you will, because they're the guys moving forward, right? So all these meaningful games that we play and tight games that we play are only beneficial for us moving forward.
Absolutely. And you've been around the CCBC for a while now, but you're relatively new to the coaching game, a couple of years in. Have you figured out yet what kind of coach you want to be, or are you still a work in progress that way?
I mean, I think you should always be a work in progress to a degree, right? I think you should always be trying to learn, and get to know your players, because every group of players is going to be different too, right? And I don't think any cookie cutter coaching approach should necessarily. I mean, sometimes it works for guys. I think depending on the player, depending on the group that you have, you kind of gotta be adjustable, right? So I try to be as open as possible. I try to have those open relationships with guys. I want it to be that kind of safe zone, and I think we can get the most out of our players that way, right? And have those sometimes difficult conversations, but like they know that it's coming from a good spot, and that I'm being honest with them, and that's the big thing, right? So I'm personally not a big yell and shout and that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, I guess sometimes you got to do it, but for the most part, it's better to have one-on-one open conversations when you need to, right? When things maybe don't go quite how you or the player want them to, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm the father of a COVID baby born during the pandemic. You're kind of a COVID coach to a certain extent. You're breaking into the league as an actual game day coach post-pandemic, so to speak. What's that been like, trying to kind of navigate the terrain and feel yourself out on the fly while also being privy to being able to be a coach during a pandemic?
I mean, it's really hard, right? Like, I mean, like, what do you tell these guys? We trained for the most part all of last year. Like, we had a month there. I think it was like mid-December to mid-January where we were shut down, and but then we were back into some one-on-one training and some small groups, and then finally some team stuff, and then the season was canceled again, right? So it's kind of one of those things. Like, these guys have been working so hard. This is their life for 4 to 5 years, or a big part of their life, anyways. And at the end of the day, like, how do you break that news to them that the season's canceled again, right? So. But at the end of the day, like, I look back and it was a good learning experience. I think kind of get my feet wet, especially on the relationship building with players, as well as the practice planning and all that kind of non-administrative part of the job. Because the administrative stuff is the stuff that I have to do now with the off-field stuff, but I didn't have to necessarily do that too much last year. But it was still a good experience to kind of forget players to get to know me, my style, how I like to plan practices and run practices, and kind of expectations for how we carry ourselves on and off the field without the stress of, making roster decisions or playing time decisions and all that kind of stuff. Right. So it was, in a way it was beneficial for me, but obviously still would have loved to play, but definitely got to get my feet wet. And like this year, I feel 100% confident in what we're trying to do here. Right. Because I got that kind of practice run, if you will. Right.
Well, not only that, you also played in the league as well. And so I'm curious, from that standpoint, being able to give them that first person dynamic, what kinds of advice are you giving to them to make sure that they're successful on their journeys?
I think just preparation is key, right? On both sides, and time management on both sides of school and baseball, right? Like, UFC is a very, difficult academic school, but depending on what program you're in, but for the most part, it's pretty difficult academic school. And the CCBC is really good baseball too. I think people kind of sleep on it a little bit, and it's very difficult to have success in both. But the more prepared you are throughout the whole 12 months of the year, if not, especially the 8 that were at school, is huge. And taking the time to make sure your body's ready, you're eating well, you're taking time for school, and then you're less stressed about school when you're at baseball and all that kind of stuff, right? So. So I think just, again, the preparation and taking the time, an hour a day to plan out your day and make sure you're following and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to on both sides, right?
We talked a little bit about the expectations you have of the team. Do you have expectations of yourself as a coach?
I think just trying to be as consistent as possible as a coach. That's kind of one of the things that so I think people don't overlook sometimes, right? So just be, again, like I said, consistent with how I treat players. Consistent with my in-game decisions, and trying, obviously, like, games always change, but again, so I want players to kind of expect or know what to expect out of myself, how I'm going to react to certain situations, because again, then they're more comfortable, right? They know that I'm not going to blow up over something small or that kind of thing, right? And that being said, if I do end up unfortunately having to blow up, they know how it's a serious thing, right? And again, just being, like I said, consistent, and I want them to know what to expect, and it's my job to get the most out of them, right? So how can I do that? And I think just being consistent is the big thing.
The last time we really chatted with you about anything baseball related, you were setting records at Foothills Stadium with the Dinos. What was that experience like? Not just the record, but also playing for this team and having your name in the record books and having your name associated with this squad.
I mean, I have a lot of pride in it. I've always really cared about the U of C program, obviously, right? I've thought that the U of C program has a ton of potential to be a upper echelon program in Canada. And so I'm fortunate. I'm really lucky to be in the position that I'm in for the school that I played for. And like you said, luckily having the opportunity to hold some records here and just kind of continue what I think it can be, or in part help that transition, and grow the program, develop the program. And like I said, I'm just really fortunate to be in that situation. And it's looking back to then, like if someone came to me, it's like, hey, do you ever think you could coach at this level? I probably would have said absolutely, but you never really think about it too much as a player, right? You're just trying to figure out what you're going to do next year after you graduate, So, or we can look forward to summer ball options or whatever, right? So, like I said, really lucky, and I'm having a ton of fun with it too. So.
You segued really well into a question I wanted to ask is about that transition from player to coach. When did that start to get into your mind a little bit that maybe this was an opportunity, and talk us through how it all came to be that you became the head coach?
So as soon as I was done playing, like that, I guess it would have been like in fall 2018, I started coaching with the Calgary, I guess at the time it was Junior Dinos, and then now Calgary Bucks program, 15U and 18U levels. And so I was doing that, and I actually I have a kin degree, so I got a kin job out of school as well. So I was doing that, and still obviously following the U of C program, still trying to be around as much as I could, and around with the training for the ABA, the training facility, right? So, and then I guess the first right after COVID hit, I guess it was like April 2020. The former head coach Jeff Freeborn stepped down, and I still had our athletic director's contact information, so I reached out and said, do you think it's worth putting together a formal application? And did that, went through the interview process, and here we are. So I would say I wouldn't say it was a difficult transition because I was coaching before, obviously at a lower level. But one thing that really helped me was when I was a senior is I was the only senior, and I was the oldest guy, and we went through a coaching change mid-year, which was difficult, and it was kind of looked at to be a bit of that off-field leader then. And and actually it's funny because I had the same thing happen to me in high school. Grade 12 year, we only had 4 seniors, and mid-season coaching change, and so it's kind of ironic, I guess, but it really helped me kind of be that more off-field leader, not just the on-field, game day stuff, but just kind of that mentor, if you will, and that kind of thing.
In your eyes, how important is it going to be to maybe introduce a little bit of, I'll call it sustainability, but maybe some stability within that organization and give them a little bit of a framework of, hey, here's what we're going to do over the next, not just this season, but also 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road?
It's huge. I mean, like I said, I've some of my older guys, I said those 6 years have played for 4 different head coaches, right? In 6 years, like that's crazy. But yeah, like you said, it's hard to build sustainability. It's hard to grow a program when there's so much, and every coach has different philosophies, and it's not their fault at all. That they just have different ideals or where they see the program going and all that kind of stuff. And now that I'm almost at the end of year 2 and heading into year 3, and we have ideas to do with like even small stuff like your fundraising and where to put that stuff, spring trip ideas, apparel ideas, stuff that and like I said, one thing we've tried to do is grow our brand through social media more as well. And that only helps grow the program, because at the end of the day, almost everyone's on social media nowadays, especially high school guys. And that's kind of that target that I think every college program should really be trying to, reach to, or their outreach stuff. Because at the end of the day, if they look good to high school players, then they're going to want to come here. And then guess what? We get a really strong recruiting class, and now we're good again. And now it just builds, right? And the ball starts rolling. So that's kind of one thing that we're trying to do, is appeal ourselves more to, like I said, those high school guys and that population, because we'll be as good as they're interested in us, 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Absolutely. Let's go back in time now and go to the beginning for you. You're a product of Coquitlam, BC. How did you get into the game in the first place?
My dad's a huge baseball guy. I'm really lucky that he was really passionate and, got me playing at a young age T-ball, right? And I had an older brother that played T-ball, and so I was the 2 to 3 year old that, hitting balls off the second tee into like the backstop while the game was going on and stuff like that, right? So, yeah, so my dad was really passionate. I remember growing up, almost every single day he would take me out in the backyard, we'd hit, wiffle balls, and that kind of thing. So I was lucky when I was 10 years old, I was coached by George Morneau, Justin Morneau's father. And so he would always said that, Justin Morneau, 100 swings a day as a kid. So that's something that always stuck with me, that we have it structured out from tee work to side toss to front toss to batting practice, right? Wiffles, baseballs down at the school field, stuff like that, right? So, that's something that, my dad sacrificed a lot looking back to it, right? And the amount of hours and time. And, back then, of course, everyone pitched too. So I had to throw my bullpens 2 or 3 times a week, and he would always catch them. And at one point he bought himself shin pads and that kind of thing, because started throwing too hard. And, looking back, and now that I'm older, it's crazy how much time and energy he put into it. Right. And, so I'm really, really grateful for everything that he did for me, and all the time that he spent and cared about me getting better and, that kind of thing.
Were you all baseball all the time as a kid, or were you playing all kinds of sports at the time? Walk us through that.
I did play hockey like every other Canadian kid. I was actually played lacrosse as well. So I played lacrosse until I was 14, because that's when I went to the Wilton Reds, who that was premier ball and a bit more serious, right? And off-season training and all that stuff. So I kind of had to make the choice. But prior to that, box lacrosse and baseball season, they actually would both run in the spring and summer. So there was times where especially like May long weekend was the big one. I'd be in 2 different tournaments, playing like 7 or 8 games over the weekend, and just be running back and forth from the hockey rink to the baseball field, back to the lacrosse rink. Right. So it's, good memories there, but, yeah.
Walk us through making that decision. Yeah, it's going to be baseball.
I think even back then I knew it, right? Like I was decent at lacrosse, but I knew that there was only so many opportunities, right? And I knew baseball was kind of the one that maybe I had a chance to do something with, right? So, but I still love lacrosse, and I had a ton of fun. I had a lot of really good close friends in it. So that's why I kind of played until I was 14, until I was forced to make that choice. But so I wouldn't say it was like a upsetting thing. It was more of like a slow realization that, I have to pick one. And it was high school. So that's kind of the time that, in my opinion, if you're going to specialize, it should be around that 15-ish age. Right. And that's when, again, off-season training, everything starts to ball starts rolling. Right.
You find yourself in Calgary, as mentioned, with the UFC program. How did that all come to be in your mind? Why was it that Calgary became your home of choice?
My parents were big on school. And like I said before, I have my kin degree, right? So the kinesiology program at the UFC is top notch. But, my first choice out of high school was UBC. I had a potential chance to go there, and it ended up not working out. And the guy that at my position who, good guy, he played for the Prospects for a while, but he signed there like a week before I wanted to. Anthony Casati is the name. Okay. He signed there about a week before I wanted to. So I ended up looking elsewhere, and UFC was kind of the next option in terms of school, opportunity to play, right? That was a big one at the time. And, just then, like I said, school-wise. So, and closer to home-ish, right?
Yeah. That always seems to be a big factor for a lot of guys going into CCBC too, is that, it's all well and good to get to a big name US college, but sometimes it's nice to be closer to home and being able to get that home-cooked meal once in a while and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, you don't have the huge long travel day to get home for Christmas and back, right? Like, or it was easy enough. Like, especially with OC and TRU, like my parents would come up to Kelowna Kamloops, right, or over to the island when we were over there, right? So they always tried to make every game they could, or like I said, even now that I'm still in Calgary and my folks are still there, if there's a long weekend, like I'll pack the car up and head out there. It's a 10-hour drive, but it's not too bad, right? Or for Christmas, it's an hour flight. It's far enough away, but close enough at the same time.
We won't get into the cost of gas right at the moment, because who knows what it'll be next week.
Yeah.
When it comes to your ball career, looking back on it, any favorite memories, any favorite moments? I mean, you played in a number of tournaments, you played in a number of big games. What maybe sticks out as a couple of your favorite moments?
One would be you mentioned that night that we broke the hit record at Foothills. So that was actually Little League night as well. So that was biggest crowd that we ever played in front of at home. Maybe 100 people, but Foothills seemed packed. Like I said, it was just a great night. Cause again, lots of kids there Friday night, right? Beautiful night. I think it was like 18, 19 degrees for like an early or late April, early May evening. And yourself was there, and Jeff Freeborn's brother was doing the announcing, right? So just had like that kind of bigger league feel, right? So that's one of them for sure. My first ever college game, I ended up going 3 for 4. So that one always sticks out. First pitch I ever saw, I hit for a double. So that always is going to be in my brain for a long time. And then, a couple of big games. I played out in Weyburn in the WCBL now. So we had a couple of big playoff games. I had a walk-off hit in the playoff games. So that still sticks out. And, like I said, just fortunate enough to be able to play a lot of baseball and play some really meaningful and close ball games where I had the opportunity to have big moments, and those things stick out in my head.
Absolutely. What's it mean to you now being able to give back to the game in the way that you are now, whether it's through the CCBC and the UFC Dinos program, or I know you're involved in with PBR as well, and you've been always sort of trying to give back to the kids in the communities?
Yeah, I think, but I only graduated high school in 2014, right? So, but even thinking back to then is I think the windows of opportunity, or however you want to put it, were a lot less. Even again, this is only 8 years ago, but there was no PBR. It was the Canada Cup team, and that was really about it. I guess junior national team was still there, right, for the top end guys. But having these avenues and leeways to help players reach their goals, right, and being in the position that I am, and I'm lucky to be a positive influence for them and help them get achieve their goals. And there's no better feeling than having a guy with PBR or working with the Bucks program, or one of my guys, have success, and them coming back to wherever they're from, or with the UFC program, and and then thank you for helping them out and all that kind of stuff. Right, not that we do a whole lot, it's a lot of it's still 100% them, but helping them achieve those goals, it goes a long way. And at the end of the day, it's people helping people, right?
One of the things that I've said over and over and over again, I feel like a broken record sometimes, is success breeds success. And you and I were talking off mic about how the scene here in Alberta, and frankly across Canada, is kind of underrated that way. Is that there's not a lot, you mentioned CCBC maybe being underrated just in terms of the talent level. What is it about the game right now in your eyes that's allowing for things to grow at the level that it is right now?
I think the big one is the training and the minds and the coaches behind it, right? Like, I know, especially in Alberta here, every program has a couple of coaches that, and like younger coaches wanting to give back, that really, really know the game and really know that kind of the training behind it. Like I know, for example, up in Edmonton, like those AHP guys do a really good job. In Calgary here, I know there's the 3 pro, there's the Bucks, Weber, Okotoks, right? They all do a pretty good job. Les and Vauxhall does a great job. And, these are all guys that, that started coaching pretty much right out of playing and wanted to give back right away with the knowledge that they got from wherever they played. And like I said, then like the off-season training, I think has gone a long way. You see the weight room numbers that some guys nowadays are putting up compared to 15 years ago. It's absolutely insane. Right. And that's, like I said, it all helps. Right. And, so I think the resources and maybe the technology a little bit, but I think the big thing is the brains behind it and the guys that are willing to help out. Like I said, it's come a long way, and it's exciting to see it continue to grow.
Well, especially you mentioned the technology side, whether it's Rapsodo or anything else, like the ability to coach isn't just the X's and O's part anymore, especially from your perspective. It's now getting into the minute details because you got video, you got everything right at your fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just like my eyes saying, dude, like picking something up, especially as the guys start getting bigger, faster, stronger, throw harder, hit the ball harder. Those small little adjustments can be really hard to see, right? Like, especially in a cage, right? Like I'm a hitter, so I think in the batting cage, sometimes you see a guy hit like a line drive off the back of the screen, and it's probably it might still be landing on the infield, but you don't see the top spin, you don't see him come out of the zone really early, stuff like that, because you just hear the sound and you see it hit the back of the cage, right? And like what that technology really helps guys really see what their batted balls are doing or what their swing's doing, and then how to adjust from there. And I mean, try to walk that line of, trying to be perfect. Obviously it's a really hard thing to do, and if not impossible, but like I said, it's not just the coach's eyes anymore. It's this, these $1,000 cameras picking these things up, and then the coaches take that and say, okay, here's how to make that number better, right? And here's how to play with that horizontal break on that pitch or whatever, right? So
Where do you see baseball going in this province as far as, if you could gaze into the crystal ball 5 or 10 or 15 years down the road and beyond that, where do you see yourself going? Do you have bigger dreams, bigger aspirations to go to bigger and better places? What's sort of on your radar?
I would never say never, but right now, like, I'm really happy in Calgary. Right? Like, I love Calgary. I love this program in school, right? So I don't necessarily see myself wanting to leave, but I'm pretty lucky that I'm in the situation that I'm in. I'm only 25, right? So, So like I said, I would never say never, but like I said, I really want to see this program grow and succeed, and I think I personally think we're going to take the CCBC by storm, considering we've, UFC's never had an above 500 record ever. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to have a really good year this year, but I'm really excited for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Like I said, we had a really good, solid recruiting class this year. I think next year is going to be even better and kind of continue to grow that way. And like I said, I just want to see that this program have a lot of success in this league and in this province.
Very cool. A couple more questions. They're the standard final couple of questions. One is the advice piece. You've dealt with those young kids, those 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who are maybe thinking about turning their attention fully on baseball after maybe a multi-sport childhood. What kinds of advice would you offer to them as they're making their way towards a journey that might be along yours even better?
I think when you're in that younger age, let's say 10 to 14, it's still trying to have fun, right? Like, try to do is go hit baseballs in the backyard at the school field, right? Like that kind of sandlot baseball type stuff, right? Like grow the love of the game first. And that way you want to do that you want to grind. You want to do those extra hours in the cage, the extra workout a week, long toss, weighted ball, whatever, but you need to have the love of the game first, right? Or else that stuff's just redundant. Mm-hmm. It feels like a job, which it should never be, right? So, play first, train second, right? And then my other piece of advice that I tell, like, let's say grade 10, 11, 12, especially the 10 and 11s is, start to track everything, start to record everything, start to, monitor how, like, the numbers that you're lifting and take video and whatever, right? Because then that's stuff that, like, as a university coach now, like, you'll have recruits send you, hey, here's my video from grade 10 and here's what I changed. Here's my video in grade 11. Here's how bigger, faster, stronger I am a year later, right? So that shows how hard they work, how much they care, mm-hmm. right? And I think that stuff goes a long way. Everyone in college baseball wants to have good players, but they want to have good people too, right? And hard workers, and that's stuff that you can't really teach as much, right?
Absolutely. Final question for you, and I think you know what's coming. What does the game of baseball mean to you?
It's a fraternity. It's family. It's brotherhood, right? That kind of thing. I've met so many amazing people from the time I was 5 years old when I started playing T-ball, or even younger when I was at my brother's games, and until now, right? It's been, so many relationships, so many good friends that, a lot of them I'm still in touch with and still talk with. And, and now that it's opening day, all the group chats are firing up and all that kind of stuff, right? So guys that you haven't talked to in a year, but that stuff's, that's what it's all about, right? Like, so a lot of the things like we talked about, favorite baseball memories, but for every in-game memory that you have or practice memory that you have, there's half a dozen, if not more, non-baseball off-field memories from guys that you shared, time with, and then, lived with, or, just had fun around the ballpark with, off the field with. And like I said, that goes way further than any, baseball accomplishment.
Absolutely. Well, Cam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on all the success you've had to this point. Continued success going forward, not only this season, but beyond as well. Thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Cam Williams for joining us this week, and thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. As mentioned, the CCBC season is underway, so if you're looking to catch some local baseball action, the Dinos, Prairie Baseball Academy Dogs, and Edmonton Collegiate Hawks look forward to seeing you at the ballpark. We'd like to take a quick moment right now to recognize our Platinum supporters for all they do for us and for the baseball community here in our province. The Okotoks Dogs will be looking to get back on top of the WCBL World this season, and it all starts at the end of May. They'll also be hosting the league's All-Star Game this summer. Head to dogsbaseball.ca for schedule information and much more. And AHP Academy is on the field as well this spring, battling other academies and quickly making a name for themselves as a force to be reckoned with. Their tagline is devoted to driven athletes. Head to ahpbaseball.com for all you need to know about them. Until next time, thanks for all of your support, no matter the platform, of Alberta Dugout Stories.